Daf Lamed Vav Amid Aleph, 2 lines into the page. Lamed Vav Amid Aleph, 2 lines into the page. So, the last thing the Gemara talked about, how we know that for food to become susceptible to tumah, it has to come in contact with a liquid. One of those liquids is blood. But the pasuk specifically discusses different types of blood. It has to be the type of blood that the Torah describes as a drink, as a liquid, not stam blood. So we said yesterday, what's universally accepted is if an animal bleeds from a wound, that's not going to make, and the blood touches food, that's not going to make the food susceptible to tumah. We said shchit is a machlokes, and we said that if the animal is killed, you shoot it in the neck, not through shchit is for sure going to machshir the zroim, it's for sure. So let's go with the opinion that shchita does, which is the Tanakama, that if you shecht an animal and some of the blood from that shchita touches fruits or vegetables, the fruits and vegetables are now susceptible to tumah. So the Gemara clarifies, Tanda Rabbi Shmuel, the dam chalolim yishta. The pasuk specifically says it has to be the blood that leaves from the life force, meaning dafka, the blood that where the animal dies, that the blood that comes out as the animal is dying, that's dafka, the blood that makes fruits and vegetables susceptible to tumah. Prat l'dam kiluach she'ein machshir zezorim, which excludes that initial spurt. Rashi explains that when you shecht an animal, that initial spurt that comes out is very bright red, and apparently that's more from the wound of cutting the neck, but that's not actually the life force of the animal, so that initial spurt is not going to be machshir zerah. Okay. Tan Rabbanon. So,
no definition to how much that is.
I have to ask your Paisach. Tan Rabbanon. I'm not trying to be rude. These halachas are, this is all hechshet tumah. These are not things that have been around for over 2,000 years. Tan Rabbanon hashoichet, if you shecht, v'hit is dam ala dlas. You start the shchita, okay, and some of the blood splatters onto a gourd, onto a pumpkin, onto a vegetable. So, just remember from our Mishnah, it's a machlokes tanoim, at least one way to understand the machlokes tanoim, is dam shchita. Does dam of the shchita machshir zroim? Does it make it susceptible to tumah? Tanakama says yes, and according to many Amirayim, Rav Shimon says no. Okay, so over here you shecht, and some of the blood spurts out onto a gourd. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Omer Hochsher. Rabbi says the gourd is now susceptible to tumah, which is the basic understanding of the Tanakama. Comes Rav Chia, and he says the following line: Toilin. Toilin means not sure. Toilin means wait. Toila. So what exactly is the machlokes? Why is Rav Chia saying wait? That we'll have to figure out. Because till now it's been pretty binary. It's either machshir or it's not machshir. You have Rav Shimon who says it's not. The Rabbanon who say that it is. Then all of a sudden you have Rav Chia who now says toilin. What's a toilin? What's going on? Okay. Rav Oishia. So Rav Oishia then, just to confuse it a little more, after you have this machlokes where Rebbe says the gourd is now susceptible to tumah, and if the gourd were to touch something tumah, you'd have to burn it. Then you have Rav Chia who says, not sure. Comes Rav Oishia and he says, how do we paskin? Me'acha she'Rebbe Omer Hochsher, Rav Chia Omer Toilin. It's a machlokes Rebbe and Rav Chia. Anu al min ismach, so who should we be samich on? Boyu v'nismach al divrei Rav Shimon. We should follow Rav Shimon from the Mishnah. A third view. Okay, so it's a machlokes Rebbe and Rav Chia. Who should we follow? Rav Shimon. What did Rav Shimon say in the Mishnah? Dam shchita is not machshir at all. So it's a third view. You have Rebbe who says yes, Rav Chia says unsure, and how we paskin, we should rely on Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon, okay, so what exactly is the machlokes? And then, whatever the machlokes is, why are we just relying on Rav Shimon out of the view, out of like the third, the third door comes Rav Shimon? Why are we following Rav Shimon? He says it's not susceptible to tumah at all, so it's not a problem. So all of a sudden, you have machlokes Rebbe and Rav Chia, and comes Rav Shimon from the side. So what's the machlokes? So says the Gemara, attempt number 1, Amar Rav Papa, Hakol moedim heichad is l'dam et chila vat soif. Says Rav Papa, if you shecht an animal, and again, let's say it takes 10 seconds to shecht, the blood spurts from the shechita and rests on the gourd, and it's on the gourd from beginning to end, the entire 10 seconds, then it's for sure, everyone agrees, the gourd is now susceptible to tumah. That's not a machlokes, Rebbe and Rav Chia. What's the machlokes? I'll say it outside, we'll see it inside. The machlokes Rebbe and Rav Chia is as follows. You shecht the first pipe, the blood splatters on the gourd, and then you wipe it away before you finish the shechita. And the fundamental machlokes is something we had last Shabbos, is yeshna l'shchita mitchila v'ad soif, Which means when you have a shchita which takes 10 seconds, is every second of those 10 seconds considered a ma'isa shchita, or is only the end? See, over here you shechted it, and in the first 5 seconds it splattered, but then you wiped it away before we finished. If you believe that the ikar shchita is only at the end, then the blood has to be on the gourd at the end of the shchita to be defined as dam shchita. If not, then it's considered just a dam of a wound, which is not machsher. If you believe yeshna l'shchita mitchila vad soif, which means every second of the shchita is considered part of the shchita, that means that initial second is also considered shchita's dam. Now, if it's on there till the end, then limafreya, it's considered dam shchita. The machlekes is where I wiped it away after the first pipe. If you believe the entire act of a shchita is a halachic shchita, that means that the dam that spurted out was part of the shchita process, so it's machsher. Rav Chia says, not sure. Meaning, what Rav Chia is basically saying is, I believe that if it was wiped away, it's not machsher. So what does it mean? Toilet means, if you want to know whether it's susceptible to tummy, you got to wait till the end of the shchita. If the blood is on there by the end of the shchita, ein l'shchita el b'soif, the definition of shchita is at the end, so then it's machsher. But if it's not there by the end, then it's not machsher, because then it's just considered the blood of a wound. So when Rav Chia says toilin, what he means, he doesn't mean halachically wait. He doesn't mean unsure. You have to translate toilin differently. Toilin means wait till the end of the shchita. Is the blood still there? Wait means wait to define it to the end of the shchita. I'll just continue the process. So let's say it was on the blood at the beginning of the shchita, be wiped it away. So Rabbi says it's machsher, it's makabel tuma, and if it becomes tummy, you have to burn it. Rav Chia says wait, if it's not there, it's not. So Rabbi and Rav Chia. Then the Gemara says, so how do we paskin? Says Rav Shia, follow Rav Shimon. Why? Rav Shimon also says no. You have Rabbi says it's makabel tuma. Rav Chia says not makabel tuma. Rav Shimon now also says not makabel tuma for a different reason. Rav Shimon's shita is that blood of the shchita is never makabel tuma. Rav Chia is because ein l'shchita el b'soif. But at the end of the day, you got 2 against 1. So that would be the flow of the Gemara according to Rav Papa.
So according to Rav Shimon, it doesn't matter whether.
Rav Shimon doesn't care. Rav Shimon, I don't care. Rav Shimon's like it could be splattered the whole time. Rav Shimon believes the dam shchita is not machsher.
According to him, we don't care whether it's like, do you hold that shchita is only in the end?
No, it doesn't matter. It unclear, and it doesn't matter. Rav Shimon would tell you, I don't care. So the point is, Rav Chia and Rav Shimon both agree in this case. Same conclusion, different reasons. They both conclude that in this scenario where you wipe the blood in between the first pipe and the second pipe, it's not makabel tuma. Rav Chia says because the shchita is defined by the end and the blood's not there. Rav Shimon says because dam shchita is never makabel tuma. The point is, you rely on them because at the end of the day, they both have the same conclusion. Different reasons, same conclusion. Let's see it inside. Amra Papa, call my do hechadis l'dam l'tchil vat soif kuli amal pig demasher. Keep legal. What is the machlekes? Beniskanech hadam b'tzim l'simen. This is where the blood is wiped from the gourd between the cutting of the first pipe and the second pipe. And what's the machlekes? Rabbi savi yeshen shchil mitzchil vat soif. Rabbi says it's makabel tuma because he believes every second of the shchita is considered part of the ma'aseh shchita, which means that initial cutting is considered part of the ma'aseh shchita, so now it's makabel tuma. V'adam shchitahu, because it's blood that came out of the shchita process. Rav Chia says no, the shchita is really defined by the end. So when he says toilin, he doesn't mean unclear, he means wait. And therefore, v'adam makahu. Umay toilin, what does Rav Chia mean when he says toilin? He means toilin adavar gamar shchita. Toilin just means wait. Rav Chia is definitive. Like when you start the word toilin, if I were to ask you what does the word toilin mean, I would think the word toilin means unclear, unsure, he's not sure the halacha. Not true. Rav Chia is very confident. Rav Chia is going to tell you if the blood's at the end, it's makabel tuma, and if not, not. Confident. Toilin just means wait. I can't tell you the psak until we're finished the process. My toilin adavar gamar shchita. I'is l'dam b'soif shchita machsher, iloy lo machsher. And what did Rav Oshia mean when he said we follow Rav Shimon? Because at the end of the day, if it was wiped away between the first and the second, Rabbi says it's makabel tuma. Rav Chia says no. To that, Rav Shimon also says no, albeit for a different reason. So that we rely on Rav Shimon because Rav Shimon now tips the scales in the conclusive, like he concludes like Rav Chia, again for a different reason. My boy v'nismech al divrei Rav Shimon, Rav Shimon loy machsher, Rav Chia machsher. So you have machlekes. Rav Shimon believes dam shchita is never machsher. Rav Chia feels that it is, but in this case it's not. So at the end of the day, in this situation, Rav Chia and Rav Shimon agree. In this situation, they both agree. Mar loy machsher, haveloi Rebbe chad ve'ein dvar shalacham makom shnayim. So now, at the end of the day, it's a conclusive machlekes of Rebbe against Rav Chia and Rav Shimon, 2 beats 1. That is the first way to understand the machlekes. The Rav Chia is confident, And Rav Chia just believes that if the blood is wiped away between the first and the second, it's not makabel tumah, and all he's saying is toilen means just wait until the end of the shechit to see if the blood's there. The Gemara doesn't like this, because I'll tell you why. The Gemara says the word toilen implies Rav Chia is unsure. Toilen does not mean wait. Toilen means unclear. Says the Gemara, Rav Ashi Amar, toilen la'olam mashma. Toilen always means unclear, not wait. So you know what the Gemara says? You know what? Let's go slightly adjust what we said. Same machlokas. The blood is wiped away between the first and the second. But instead of Rav Chia being confident, here's the slight change. Rabbi says it's makabel tumah, for sure. Rav Chia says, I'm unsure. Not that Rav Chia is confident it's not. Rav Chia is saying, I don't know. In a situation where it's wiped away, I don't know. Is shchita mitchila vad soif and it's makabel tumah, or ein l'shchita ela b'soif and it's not? Rav Chia is saying, toilen, I don't know. So now think about what the case would be. I have this gourd. According to Rabbi, it's makabel tumah definitively. According to Rav Chia, unsure. Someone who's tamei touches it. They both would tell you you can't eat it. Because again, Rabbi holds it's makabel tumah 100%. Rav Chia would say suffik. So you can't eat it. The nafka mina between Rav Chia and Rabbi is, do you have to burn it? Rabbi would say yes. Rav Chia would say, I'm not saying you have to burn it. I'm just saying don't eat it, because I don't know. To b'chayiv you to burn it, I'm not going to b'chayiv you to burn it. To that, the Gemara says, so how do we paskin? Let's add Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon has a completely third view. Rav Shimon's like, it's not makabel tumah, you can eat it. So you have Rebbe, can't eat it and have to burn. Rav Chia says, can't eat it, but don't have to burn, unsure. Rav Shimon says, you can eat it. But if you take Rav Shimon and add him to Rav Chia, they both at least agree you don't have to burn it. Again, Rav Shimon has a completely different view. He holds you could eat it, but at least Rav Shimon and Rav Chia agree that you don't have to burn it. That's what Rav Aishia meant. Let's add Rav Shimon to the mix, in that you don't have to burn the gourd. So let's just see inside. Rav Chia is unsure in the case where it was wiped between the first pipe and the second. And what does Rav Chia mean when he says toilen? He means toilen, meaning toilen means unsure. What do you do when you're unsure about something that's makabel tumah? Don't eat it, but don't burn it. Hands up, just do nothing. So Rebbe would tell you to burn it. Rav Chia would tell you, just shev al tasa, don't do anything. To that, the Gemara says, "My boy v'nismech al Rav Shimon." So what does Rav Shimon have to do with this? Rav Shimon loy machshir. Rav Shimon holds you could eat the gourd. Rav Chia sveika. But regarding burning, they both agree. Rav Chia says you don't have to burn. Rav Shimon says you definitely don't have to burn, because Rav Shimon holds you could eat it. We'll put them together and say, at least for the psak of do you have to burn the gourd? No. Because Rebbe says yes, but Rav Chia and Rav Shimon say no. 2 against 1. Okay. Good. Ad kam, that's end of that sugya. Now a new sugya. It's a new sugya, but it's not that much of a new sugya. Let me explain outside what the sugya is, and you'll see it's quite simple. We've had over the last couple days, you don't have to know that much about Tumah Tahara, but what you do have to know is that for something to become susceptible to Tumah, it has to come in contact with a liquid. And there's rules. There's Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, Revi. I don't care the details, but just there are rules. If you touch a Rishon, and then the Rishon becomes a Sheni. If I'm an Av and I touch you, you become a Rishon. There's rules. Here's the question. We know there's a concept. Let's say you have a karba mincha that you're supposed to mix with oil. Now, oil is a liquid, right? So if I mix it with oil for this purpose, it's a liquid. So if I mix it with oil, and then I'm tameh, I touch it, it's makabel tumah because it's a liquid. Let's say I didn't do a good job mixing, and there's a giant clump of flour. It never came in contact with the liquid. The halacha is it's still makabel tumah. Why? There's a concept that we'll talk about for the next few moments, and that's called chibas hakodesh machsharsan, which is that a carbon is so chashiv, it's makabel tumah, even without a liquid. The concept of a liquid making something makabel tumah, it's sort of like now it's a food. Once it comes in contact with liquid, now it's a food. This is so chashiv, it's a food, even without. So if I'm tameh and I touch that clump of flour, it's tameh. No good. Here's the shaila, and this is the shaila till the end of the daf, and that is this concept of chibas hakodesh. Again, understand the words. Chibas hakodesh means that it's so chashiv because it's a carbon, it's makabel tumah. It's susceptible to tumah. No liquids. Here's the shaila. The shaila is chibas hakodesh 2 options. One is that it just becomes tameh. In that, you have to burn it. It just becomes disqualified. But it does not go the Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi route. Meaning, when the Torah says that you have a carbon that's so chashiv that it could be susceptible to tumah, there's two options. Option number one is that it's back in the system, fully. It's susceptible to tumah. If it's touched by a Rishon, it becomes a Sheni. If it touches something else, it makes a Shlishi, meaning it's not just susceptible to tumah, it's like one of the guys. It's in the system. Or no, it's susceptible to tumah, but it's unique in that it could become disqualified, but it doesn't become a Rishon, it doesn't become a Sheni, it doesn't become a Shlishi. It's not part of that system, that hierarchy system. It just becomes disqualified. That's the Shaila. You understand? So when Chibas HaKodesh that makes it susceptible to Tumah, it definitely becomes disqualified. The question is, does it also become part of that system? If I touch it, very simple, I'm a Rishon, and I touch that flower, what is it? Option number one, it becomes a Sheni, like everything else, or no. It doesn't go in your system of Rishon, Sheni, it just puzzles. Burn it, that's it. It doesn't touch something else, make a Shlishi. No. It's not part of that system. It's just puzzle. That's the Shaila, and I'll spoil it. The Shaila is mentioned over here. We're going to go through an entire Amid. It's a Teku. The entire Amid is just to understand the Kasha. But it's a fundamental Shaila, it's a Teku. Okay. Boy Rav Elazar, the Gemara's Kasha. Okay. Boy Rav Shem Belakish, I'm sorry. Boy Rav Shem Belakish. Tzarit Shel Menalchas, you have a dry lump in a mincha. So it was never touched a liquid. It definitely becomes disqualified. The question is, does it become like a Rishon and a Sheni? Does it become part of that system of Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi? So the Gemara clarifies. What's the Shaila? This concept of Chibas HaKodesh, does this just make it that it's possible? But it's not part of the system of Rishon, Sheni, or Chule? Or perhaps there's no difference. No, once it's part of the system, it's part of the system. That's a shot. So the Gemara says, that was Rish Lakish's kasha. Again, it's going to be a teku. But Rav Elazar responds as follows. Tashima, mikol ha'ochel asher ye'ochel. He said to him, it says mikol ha'ochel asher ye'ochel, that the pasuk says it has to be food, it has to come in contact with the liquid. Ochel abam b'mayim hochsher, ochel shein abam b'mayim loy hochsher. It doesn't touch a liquid. Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you think Rish Lakish, what is Rav Elazar saying? Rish Lakish is asking, is it part of the system or not? To that, Rav Elazar says, but it never touched a liquid. Can I be honest with you? That's the type of shaila you sometimes hear in like not an hour shir, but sometimes you're watching Daf Yomi shir and you get like a kasha. That's a shaila that's not the best. That response is not the best response in the world. Oh, it didn't touch a liquid. You don't think Rish Lakish knew this? There's a concept called Chibas HaKodesh. Yes, Rish Lakish knows. Meaning it sounds like Rav Elazar is saying, what are you talking about? That dry lump never touched oil. That's a foolish answer. Obviously, that's not what Rav Elazar meant, because Rav Elazar was brilliant. But that can't be taken at face value, because he knows that. Rish Lakish knows that it didn't touch a liquid. Rish Lakish is saying it's a special category. It's like Rav Elazar is like, but it didn't touch a liquid. It's like shkayach. I understand that. So it says the Gemara, Otu Rish Lakish less be oichel abam b'mayim. You don't think Rish Lakish knew this? He knows that it has to normally touch a liquid, but this is the exception. His question is, it's called Chibas HaKodesh, does that have the same system of touching a liquid as in Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, or is it different? So how is Rav Elazar answering it? So the Gemara says, this is what Rav Elazar meant to say. Rav Elazar Nami. Rav Elazar understood the kasha. It's like they're not talking to each other. Rav Elazar understood the kasha, and this is his response. Again, Rish Lakish's question is, this dry lump of flour, it didn't touch a liquid, but it has a special Chibas HaKodesh. The question is it just puzzle when it touches someone tamei, or is it part of the system Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi? Rav Elazar responded by a pasuk. What is Rav Elazar's point? Rav Elazar's point is very simple. There's two psukim that mention the same thing. A food has to touch a liquid to be Mekabel Tumah. Two psukim. Why do I need two psukim? The answer is, one is extra to tell me that you want to have the Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi system, it needs to touch a liquid. Meaning that second pasuk that's extra is to tell me that I understand Chibas HaKodesh is a thing, but you want the Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi system, it's got to touch a liquid. That must be the extra pasuk doing that, because if not, there's an extra pasuk that says that for something to be part of this system, it's got to touch a liquid. Why is that extra pasuk there? I don't need two psukim tell me the same thing. The answer is the second pasuk is telling me, I understand, the second pasuk is basically answering Reish Lakish's question. There's a Chibas HaKodesh concept, I get it, but you want to be Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi? No, liquid only. Meaning this extra pasuk is addressing your case. Not to say that if there's no liquid, it's not makabel tuma. No, I understand yours is the exception, but this extra pasuk is telling me that to be a Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, it's got to touch a liquid. That must be the extra pasuk. Unless we could have another use for that extra pasuk. And we're back to the Teku question. Well, that's the question. It's a Teku. He's asking that. This extra pasuk is to tell you no Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi unless... the pasuk says, for something like Kabbalah Tumah, it's got to touch a liquid. And then Hashem says again, for something to touch a liquid, for something Kabbalah Tumah, it's got to touch a liquid. It's like, whoa, we need the second pasuk for it. The answer is the second pasuk is addressing you, Reish Lakish. I understand it's Makabel Tumah, but you want the system liquid only. That seems to be. It would just be puzzle. You would have to burn it, but it wouldn't spread Tumah to others. It wouldn't be a part of that Rishon Sheni Shlishi. It would just be disqualified. Oh yeah, okay, fine. It's a teku. So, okay, you're not supposed to know it's a teku. I spoiled it. Rav Elazar, Nami miyusure krokamer. Rav Elazar is saying there's an extra pasuk michti. Ksiv v'chiyuten mayim al zera. That's one pasuk that says it has to touch a liquid. Mikol oicha sheyachal lamali. So we need the second pasuk. Go to the next page. Lavli mute chibes hakodesh. It must be addressing your case that there's an extra pasuk to tell me that to be a part of the system of Rishon Sheni Shlishi, you need to touch a liquid. So the Gemara says no, it's not an extra pasuk at all. You need both. Why do I need both psukim to tell me the same thing? It's not talking about this at all. The Gemara says, "Loi chad betumas meis, chad betumas sheretz." Let me say it outside. We'll see it inside. It's not extra. You need two psukim to tell me that in order for something to be susceptible to tumah, forget about a carbon, it needs to touch a liquid. Why do I need two psukim to tell me the same thing? I'll tell you why. I have an apple in front of me. Okay, it's only makabel tumah if it touched a liquid. I need two psukim to tell me that. Why? One case is if a tamei mace touches the apple, and one case is if a sheretz touches the apple. And I would not be able to extrapolate either. If I just had the pasuk by a sheretz, I would say, yeah, sheretz, that's not such a severe tumah. You need to touch a liquid. But tamei mace touches a dead body. Tamei, even if it never touches a liquid. And the opposite is also true. If you just had tamei mace, I would say tamei mace, maybe not. But sheretz, yes. The Gemara is going to clarify. The point is they're not extra. Both psukim are telling you the same thing, that for food to be makabel tumah generally, forget about a carbon, generally it needs to touch a liquid. Why didn't two psukim tell me the same thing? The answer is one is for tamei mace and one is for a sheretz. And the Gemara clarifies. Tzrichi, iyashmin tumas mace. If the pasuk just said that tamei mace, you need to touch a liquid first. There is a stringency that a sheretz has over tamei mace, and that is how big does the item have to be to spread tumah? By tamei mace, it has to be a kazayas of the dead body. But when it comes to a sheretz, it could be a lentil, a tiny little dead little bug can spread tumah. Such a severity, maybe you don't have to touch liquid first. Maybe the apple will be susceptible to tumah if it touches the sheretz, even without a liquid. And the opposite is also true. If you just had a sheretz, I would say a sheretz that doesn't need paraduma, but tamei mace, which requires paraduma, it's so severe, maybe it's able to spread tumah even without touching a liquid first. That's why you need both, but it's not extra. Aval sheretz mitam chadashim eloi lebay hechsher v'yash min sheretz mishum toloi mitam tumah shiva. Aval mace mitam tumah shiva eim eloi lebay hechsher tzricha. So we're back to the original question, is Chibas HaKodesh just disqualified, or does it become part of the system as well? Now this fundamental question basically is you normally, just very simple, you normally have this system that when something's makabel tumah through a liquid, right, you need a liquid, and then it's Rishon Sheni Shlishi. This is an exception, because there's no liquid. And the question is, how far out of the system is it? So it's not part of the system because there's no liquid, and yet it's still susceptible to tumah. The question is it disqualified or is it Rishon Sheni Shlishi? So yeah.
I was gonna say like we had these two stuff game and you said
well, they're not extra anymore.
Yeah, they're extra, which then.
So they can't help us. Now we're back to the question. Here's the Gemara is going to prove it. This is how the Gemara is going to prove it. Shchita. Okay. What did Rav Shimon say? If you shecht an animal and no blood comes out, what did Rav Shimon say? It's still susceptible to tumah. Now that no liquid, and Rishon Sheni, as we're going to see in a moment. So you see, you don't need liquid out. That's also out of the system, right? Normally you need a liquid. Special concept. Shchita also susceptible to tumah. Makes the animal susceptible to tumah, the dead animal. No liquid and Rishon Sheni. So you see, you don't need liquid to make a Rishon Sheni. It's a fair. The Gemara says, Maser Rav Yosef, Rav Shimon, Omer Huksher b'shchita. Rav Shimon holds that shechting a non-carbon, because the carbon has its own thing. Shechting a non-carbon, I shecht the chicken, no blood comes out, the chicken is susceptible to tumah. And not only susceptible to tumah, Rishon Sheni. And the Gemara says, the Brisa says, V'afilu minna Rishon Sheni. V'amai halav oichla b'av mayim. So what do you see? You see from here, there's no liquid, and you don't need liquid to be a Rishon Sheni. That should be the answer to your question. So the Gemara says, not so fast. That's derabanan. That's derabanan. The fact that a shchita, that it goes Rishon Sheni, that's a takanas chazal. Meaning, you shecht an animal, no blood comes out, it's susceptible to tumah deraisa. But the Rishon Sheni concept, that's derabanan. It doesn't help us. As we're going to see in a moment, we're looking for Torah. We're looking for deraisa. Says the Gemara, Amar le Abaya, aso kehech shemayim derabanan. Doesn't help us. That's a din derabanan. Another one. The halacha is that if you're gathering grapes and you put them in a basket and some of the grapes burst, now is it susceptible to tumah classically? No, because you need the liquid. You will have to want the liquid to touch the grapes. Over here, I don't want the grapes to burst in the basket because it's got holes and it's dripping out. But you know what the halacha is? Chazal made it that it is susceptible to tumah because of Gzeira and Rishon Sheni. So you see that even though there was no classic liquid, there was a liquid, but you didn't want the liquid to be there, still Rishon Sheni. And the Gemara is going to respond the same thing, derabanan. We're looking for deraisa. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Zera, Tashema habaytz lagas. You're picking grapes, you're putting them in a basket, and their juice comes out accidentally. Shammai oimer huksher, Hillel oimer loy huksher. It's a machlekes be Shammai and Hillel whether it's susceptible to tumah. V'shasik Hillel Shammai, and we pass like Shammai that it is. And not only is it Rishon Sheni. But there's no classic water over there. There's no classic liquid because again, you don't want it to touch the water from the grape juice. So what do you see? You see that even though it's not classic, we still go Rishon Sheni. So the Gemara same response. That's the Rabbanan. Okay, so think about what we have over here. We had a question. You have Chibas HaKodesh, yeah? Chibas HaKodesh. The question is it Rishon and Sheni? So we asked a question from Shchita, and we said Derabanan. And then we asked a question from harvesting grapes, and the answer is Derabanan. So the Gemara is like, do the same thing here. Derabanan. Easy. You asked the question, is it Rishon Sheni? The answer should be, yeah, Derabanan. Follow the pattern. Shchita, Derabanan. Harvesting grapes, Derabanan. So make it Derabanan. And the Gemara is going to respond, that's very nice, but we're looking for Din Doraisa. I'll tell you why. If a carbon, we're talking about a carbon, yeah? If it's Rishon Sheni, that means that if it touches this thing, it'll spread tumah. If it's a din d'oraisa, I will have to burn the things it touches, if they're karbanos. If it's a din d'Rabbanan, I can't burn karbanos that are only tamei rabbinically. So the answer is just saying it's d'Rabbanan is not going to help me. I need a d'oraisa answer. Because we're dealing with karbanos and burning karbanos, you need Torah. You don't need d'Rabbanan. D'Rabbanan's not going to help me. D'Rabbanan is just going to say basically just don't touch it. I get it. So says the Gemara, Amrli Rav Yosef said to Abaya, I mentioned the shchita, and you said it's Derabanan. And then I mentioned the Rav Zera's proof about the baskets, and you said it's Derabanan. So answer the same thing in our sugya. This clump of flour, say it's Derabanan. So to that responds Abaya, Amrle, Atur Rishim Melakish Litlois mi Baile, Kikam Baile Lisraif. Rish Lakish is not looking for a Derabanan. He's looking for Tairaisa, because he wants to know if you have to burn the carbon. Derabanan is not going to help me. That's very nice. I'm looking for Tairaisa answers here. Meaning, because Rish Lakish's Shita, Rish Lakish believes that this Chibas HaKodesh is a Din Tairaisa, meaning that even if it doesn't come in contact with the liquid, it's a Torah disqualification. And his question is it Rishon and Sheni? You could just say the whole thing's Derabanan. That's very easy and it's very safe. That's not what he's looking for. He's saying this is a Deraisa concept. Once it's a Deraisa concept, I'm looking for more. Is it Rishon Sheni v'chule? Where do you just, now the Gemara just says, before we go to Teku, the Gemara just says, where is this a whole thing that is Deraisa? Chibas HaKodesh being Deraisa, where's that from? Needing a liquid is Deraisa, for sure. But now you're telling me Chibas HaKodesh is also Deraisa, and he's trying to figure out, is it Deraisa, Rishon Sheni, and where is it Deraisa? Says the Gemara, Michlal de Chibas HaKodesh Deraisa, Minolon, where's the source that it's Deraisa? Ile Midchsiv. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you. It says, Habasar Asher Yiga B'chol Tameh. The Pasuk says, it's very simple, I'll say it outside, we'll see this, it's very simple. The Pasuk says that if you have a shlamim, a carbon, that someone touches who's Tameh, it's tameh. You have to burn the shlamim. How is the shlamim susceptible to tumah? So you'll say, let's go through some options here. You needed to touch a liquid, pashtus. Yeah? So you say shechting, the shchita. The problem is, as we'll see in a moment, dam shchita is only machsher, it only makes something susceptible to tumah if it's a non-carbon. Because the pasuk says, "Ala aretz tishbechenu kamayim." Only the dam shchita which spills on the floor. Carbonos, you don't spill on the floor, you catch it. So dam shchita is not machsher by a carbon. And if you're going to say it came in contact with a liquid, how is a carbon getting wet in the Beis Hamikdash? Why is it wet? The only option is blood. Dam shchita, huh? Oh, so we'll talk about that. First of all, there's no rain over the Beis Hamikdash. It was one of the special miracles. But the point is, even that, there's a special drasha that all the liquid in the Beis Hamikdash does not make anything tameh. It's a special the whole concept of liquids being makabel tumah is the Rabbanon. Chazal did not extend in the Beis Hamikdash. So think about this. A shlomim, the pasuk says, can become tameh. It can't be from dam shchita because dam shchita is only machsher chullin, not karbanos. So dam shchita is out. So how is a carbon wet? It must be you don't need to be wet. Chibas hakodesh. That's the Gemara's answer.
The oil and the mincha is liquid.
Yeah, but why isn't oil touching a cow? It's a cow. It's a shlomim. No, no, you're right for that, but this is a shlom. So the Gemara says, how is a shlomim wet? So it must be chibas hakodesh. The Gemara says, it's not such a great raya. Maybe I'll tell you the case. Mr. Lurch is coming with his cow, and he had to walk through the river, because there was a river outside of the Beis Hamikdash, and he got all wet, and he brought the cow in, and the cow is still dripping. Okay, it's not so okay. Let's see inside. The Gemara says, "Hi, basidich shemai." How is a shlomim susceptible to tumah? Ilay medischash v'dam. You say, "Well, dam shchita." That can't be. Dam shchita is only machsher by chulin. How do I know that the blood of kodshim does not make it susceptible to tumah by the shchita? Shenemar. Only type of blood that's machsher is the type of blood that you spill on the floor. Chulin. Karbanos, you don't spill the blood on the floor. You put it on the mizbeach. So a discussion mashke beit tetachvia, which is what you mentioned. It rained or stam. There was a lot. They would wash the meat. So there's water in the Beis Hamikdash. Stam, the water splashed on it. The Gemara says no. The liquids of the Beis Hamikdash, of the butcher house in the Beis Hamikdash, loy dayin shehin dochin and shehin machshirin. They're not makabel tumah, and they don't spread tumah. It's a special takanos chazal that all the liquids in the Beis Hamikdash do not. So how is this cow susceptible to tumah? Can't be from the dam shchita, can't be from any liquids, rain or whatever that happened in the Beis Hamikdash. All liquids, not just blood, because this is mashki. So how is this animal susceptible to tumah? Elav diskasha b'chibas hakodesh. It must be chibas hakodesh, and you see that chibas hakodesh is a din d'oraisa. So says the Gemara, V'dilma k'Rav Yudam Shmuel. I have a very simple answer. The cases where you bring the cow through the stream, outside of the Beis Hamikdash, and it still has liquid, it's still wet. So the Gemara says, no, I can't be. I'll tell you how I know that it can't just be a liquid. You know what's also makabel tumah? The wood. You know what's also makabel tumah? The frankincense. Those are not foods. Liquids are not going to make a piece of wood makabel tumah. So what's the answer? The answer is karbanos are different. Don't think, you're thinking in like liquid form. How is a cow susceptible to tumah? If you need a liquid, well, this and that. You know what's also susceptible to tumah? The wood on the mizbeach. If I have a piece of log and it becomes wet, it's only by food. So how is a wood becoming tumah? The answer is karbanos. Says the Gemara Elameseifa, v'habasar l'rabos eitzim levaina. The wood and the frankincense also can acquire tumah in the Beis Hamikdash. Eitzim levaina b'nei achilin, they're not food. So how are they subject to susceptible to tumah? El chibas hakodesh machshar l'mishavel oichol. Hachanami chibas hakodesh machsharta. That's chibas hakodesh. Chibas hakodesh means it doesn't have to be a food. It doesn't have to come in contact with liquid. All karbanos, all things that are karbanos in the Beis Hamikdash are susceptible to tumah. And now we understand Reish Lakish's question. Things that are susceptible to tumah even without a liquid, like a clump of flour. The question is it just susceptible to tumah, or is it part of the system? Rishon v'sheni, teku. And that was his question. Now we understand his question from a moment ago. His question is chibas hakodesh, which now we've proven is a din d'oraisa. Is it just enough to disqualify, or is it rishon v'sheni as well?